Technology for Impact through Global Partnership. This session will dwell into how technology, when combined with strategic global partnerships, can drive impactful and sustainable change on a global scale. Our moderator for this session is Ms. Praveena. Joining her for this panel for this fireside chat will be Ms. Suhaila Khan, Country Program Manager at UN Women. Ms. Khan is a leading voice in gender equality and women empowerment, utilizing technology to create lasting social impact. Please join me in welcoming both of them to this session.
So clearly, Suhela, you and I are literally sitting between, I think, churning stomachs at the moment. We better make it interesting. We better make it powerful as two women, and we better make it sensible for our audience here. And I'm glad it's a fireside chat. I'm looking for fire. There isn't any, but I guess the two of us will uh, compensate for the fire that's in me. Um, For a second, I'll wear my hat as the co-chair of this platform. I mean, sometimes when you take a lead or a co-lead role in certain initiatives at a country level, you wonder where it's all headed. But the first half of today uh, assures me that we've taken something on ourselves. That first we think we can deliver. We're confident. We have the support. Three, there is there is need on both sides, right? Whether it is for people who want to invest in something that creates social impact, and there are people who want to create that social impact. So we are very, very thankful to everyone who shared their ideas. To Nidhi's point, where she spoke about on the previous panel about the social stock exchange, I am super proud to share that the first organization that has registered on the stock exchange is Unnati. We've been partnering with Unnati for about 12 years now. We've seen the incredible work they do in skilling youth, particularly from the rural areas, and helping them get um, economically upward mobile, and the impact that they've created is immense. And of course, now we are partnering with Unnati and taking this initiatives to several states. We've opened centers in Nagaland. We are opening one in Sikkim now. We've done in Madhya Pradesh. We've done in Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, and so on and so forth. And firsthand, I have seen the good work they do. And I hope that several other organizations will take cue from that and register themselves on the social stock exchange. So that's one part. Um, Looking at all these showcase tables that are here, I'm very keen to go and interact um, with people who have these brilliant ideas and how the ecosystem can benefit from these ideas. But coming to you, and I'm going to make it a little bit more um, contextual for all of us. An audience, I am not Ninad Karpe. I'm not even comparing myself to the swag that he has and the way he carried that first panel. Nor do I have what Pratik has. He had the voice. I think we are two women and we're going to name it just by being women. Um, so the maid I have at home, Suhera, comes from rural India. Um, she has a skill, absolute. She understands what I want. She knows what she needs to do. And trust me, I don't have to look at a watch when the doorbell rings when she comes in the morning. Come rain, come shower, come winter, come summer, she's there on time, right? She knows what I need, and she really helped me. I depend a lot on her. Um, she has a mobile. I pay her directly on the digital payment app. Um, When she's free and relaxing, I always see her watching YouTube movies. She's fully aware of issues that bother her, right? Whether what happens, what recently happened in Bengal, or what has happened in Wayanad, or whatever. She's aware, right? It's not that she's not, she has an opinion on all of that. The access to that information is coming to her through that digital medium and empowering her with this knowledge. She's able to send money that she earns back home to her family, spend it on herself. She doesn't carry cash. She has an Aadhaar, she has a voter ID card, she's about to get a passport, and so on and so forth. Where is the digital divide?
Okay, thank you for that question. And I would like to begin by really reflecting first the positives that you have already shared. We have seen that, digital technologies have really created tremendous opportunities for women to become part of our mainstream economic system, but also have enabled them to voice their social autonomy. And the example is clearly here, right? But and apart from this example, we also know that labor and gig platforms like urban clubs of the world and similar platforms have given that much needed opportunity for flexibility that women are looking for to be able to participate constructively in the labor force. By the way, at this point of time, women's labor force participation in India is 37%, which is much, much below the global average, but also compared to men, which stands at 75%. So, really, this is the context that we are talking about the relevance of technologies for women and gender equality. Now, so I completely agree that. The technology has really created those opportunities for women, but I do also know the fact that despite this there are a large proportion of women who one remain cut off with this world's most significant phenomena, and there the gender divide comes in. So I'll read the statistics from my notes. So the mobile gender gap report 2023 by GSMA, it states that Indian women are 40% less likely to use mobile internet than men. So here comes the gender digital divide. Because if right now the mobile technology and digital is the way of life, not only for individuals, for governments, for markets to function, if women are not on that platform, how can we expect to be having those opportunities, equal opportunities accessible to them? And the second point that I want to also bring to your attention is the fact that women also remain at risk of bearing the brunt of offline inequalities that transfer into because of the social norms that are prevalent. So there is a report by World Health Organizations that says that 1 in 10 women have already experienced a form of cyber violence since the age of 15. So so we have, it's a double-edged sword with the with the digital technologies that we are talking about. I think what we need to do is to really realize the constructive potential of digital technologies and address, these gaps, and challenges to create equal opportunities for women in the access and use of the digital technology.
Yeah, thanks, Suhela. You mentioned backstage to me that you've probably done this kind of work all your working life so far, and over a decade, nearly a decade and a half with UN Women. From your perspective, how do you connect the dots? How do you see the dots being connected among stakeholders? And why is something like a fish uh, important from your lens? Why is it um, why is it so important from your lens and from the UN lens?
No, I'll come back to the example of the statistics that I cited about of 37% of women in labor force at this point of time. And this is not because this is my area of work. This is a national priority at this point of time. Our Prime Minister has a vision of women-led development. There are recent budget announcements that were made to be able to lift up women's participation through investments in working women's hospitals, through creches and things like that. What is important in this debate at this point of time is the recognition of the fact that women bear disproportionate responsibilities of care. which is the child care, which is elderly care, which is care of disability. Now, if I again reflect back on the statistics, Pravina, women in India spend 10 times more time on care responsibilities than the global average of 2.8 times. Now, imagine how then we expect women to participate equally in the economy, politics, or leisure for that matter. They don't even have time for themselves. So, this is the context that we are talking about. What we as UN women were trying to do is to really use and leverage the potential of social tech startups to be able to bridge the demand and supply gaps, which is really, really very, very critical. And we understand at this point of time that demand is so huge that the public provisioning is falling short of addressing that demand. And therefore, because of the social norms, women have to step in, and women are stepping in because they are expected to be the primary caregivers. Now, what we did is to launch this care entrepreneurship accelerator, where the idea was to really, use the platforms, digital platforms, like Urban Clap or Uber, where women entrepreneurs were able to create those opportunities for people who are looking for workers, care providers, caregivers that can support them in fulfilling their care responsibilities, be it child care, be it elderly care. Now, three lessons that we learned from that. One was really that market-based solutions like these really supplement the public provisioning and and help mitigate the demand and supply gap. The second one is that technology, of course, helps to fulfill the information gap. I don't know if I need a nanny, a reliable, a good quality nanny for my kid. Where should I go and how should I find that? But also, these platforms created an important marketplace to address this particular need that is so central for women's economic participation. But the third and important one was the fact that, we do not, they are still perceived as risk oriented enterprises. Investors do not know in details about the relevance of this product that these social tech startups are creating and how central they are for the economic development of women and for.
Thanks, Sohela. In fact, I'll bring to context um, the recent partnership we had with All India Institute of Medical Sciences. It's rather strange for an organization like AIMS to come to a company like Boeing to say we have a neonatal ICU for premature babies who are, again, the other dimension is critically ill. And they said, we need your help for the patient management system. And we reached to our um, um, IT and analysis team. Volunteers, our own team members came together. They collaborated with AIMS. They visited AIMS. They saw the problem that existed and developed a solution platform, a technology-based solution to kind of put the whole parameters, all of their understanding from multiple stakeholder perspective into one platform. So whether it was parents as caregivers for that baby that's admitted in the hospital, whether it was the paramedic staff that needed to implement the care that was prescribed, and for the doctor, because otherwise everything was kind of compartmentalized in that sense. But now there is there is a holistic approach to how the care is being given to the baby. So I completely relate to what you're saying. I'm going to throw an off syllabus question at you. What are some of the priorities that you as UN are working with Government of India to look at technology driven solutions for societies, and what is the approach that you think Government of India is currently taking, and what is the scope for anything that we do in future?
Thank you again for that question. And really, to begin with, like I said, that there is a recognition and realization that something needs to be done to bring more women into the mainstream economy. And that is a good thing. Now, from the government's perspective, we all I think you spoke about Gem Trinity in the morning, right? And we know that technology is already being used by the government, left, right, and center in trying to bring more women into this mainstream economy. We have now Portion Tracker, which has eases of the work of Anganwadi workers to really manually enter the data on the nutrition parameters. And we have MGNREGA, where we are using the digital platforms to transfer the salaries, which has in some cases resulted in increase of women's employment. So what I see the relevance of platforms like this, and what I see as UN, next step forwards and create that space, is to bring together the convening power of organizations like UN and organizations like CII, including this platform, to be able to, number one, recognize, make noise, and let people aware that there are issues like care which needs to be at the center and forefront, and create that awareness among the larger community, that this needs to be looked at from the perspective of a provisioning failure, that women are stepping in to provide that role, where clearly there has to be an investment case into this dialogue, right? There is an investment case. So if you are able to create those opportunities for women, of course they would be contributing more to the economy, and there is, we can see what that everybody refers to, that how you know our GDP could expand. So you know what? Yeah. So coming back to that point, so I do see the potential of platforms like these, including with UN Women, to create those convening opportunities, but also bring larger corporates together on the same platform to create those investment opportunities for such social tech startups, access to market opportunities for such social tech startups. And we are, as UN, we are working with government of India at this point of time to be able to really socialize these care accelerators, because they do think that there is a need to supplement the work so as to address the demand gap. By 2030, we will be adding zero point 0.1 billion adults and zero point 0.1 billion young kids to Indian economy. And our care systems right now are not equipped to handle that demand.
Yeah, thanks, Sohela. Mind-boggling numbers coming. But I'll pause here if there are questions from anybody in the audience. And we all know you're hungry, but the mind to be fed first, I think. Anybody or questions? Yeah, please.
Hi, Sarika this side. So I am part of the Young Indian arm of the CII. Right now I'm the rural chair. So where we have adopted villages to take the things at the ground grassroots. By profession, I am a CA. So we already have so many platforms available where we really need to connect the dots. But at the end of the day, the information is not rightly available, or you don't know how to access the information. Like right now, I met you, ma'am. But later, if I really want to implement something on the ground, maybe in the villages in Haryana or Bihar, so then how to take it forward? What is the mode of communication? Because after this summit, then we are not in touch with anyone, we don't know about the initiatives, we so I really want to know about it. And then because summit should not be a summit, it should actually give some results also. That's where I want to focus. I just My question is just to know the mechanism to connect after this summit, so that we can really make some difference on the ground together.
Co-chair.
Yeah, co-chair. I think that is our collective responsibility to make sure that summit doesn't remain a summit. That's why we call it as a platform. We called it as an initiative. That's why we are all stakeholders in that. It's our collective responsibility to make sure that we don't do this. We collaborate. We continue to collaborate. We continue to work together. The commitment from my side is I'm happy to host meetings of interested parties. Our office is not very far from here. And I do claim that our boardroom is one of the most beautiful ones. My colleague Amrita, Parikshit, and Ritika will vouch for that. We will be very happy to host, chat sessions, discussions, and knowledge sessions on how people want to take this forward together. I cannot say that myself or the chairman or CII have the answers, but we got to find the answers. And I think that's where it can get more collaborative. We've taken it upon ourselves. We can't leave it here. Yes, madam.
My name is Upasna and I represent Ration Sutra. And Pravina, you began with the digital divide and you cited an example of the health who comes to your place. So I think the lady you were talking to about was very, very urban. Now, I work with rural women in Chhattisgarh, Northeast. I want to tell you their story. So we've just launched an app. I mean, I think it's really nice to bring it up here. I don't have a question. I'm just bringing up the story from the ground. So we have designed an app called Gram Sutra app because our machines help them make yarn and we want them to give access to markets. So we want to onboard these women on the app, get them to do transactions. Now, where am I today? For me, even to get them onboarded is a task. So we are beginning with right from the grassroots level, we have to begin with digital literacy. We did a baseline survey. How many of them have access to the phone? So I think it's less than 40% who have access to a smartphone. There is a rural India which exists still on those keypad phones. Right. So I'm just trying to bring to you the reality and the digital divide which exists in the rural and urban plans.
Yeah, absolutely. I fully agree. I have traveled to the most rural parts in South Asia, um, India for sure, and I've seen it firsthand, and I know what you're talking about. Uh, it's about making sure we climb the steps, one step at a time, together at a time, right? And that's my approach to this one. The fact that we are talking about moving from a normal non-smartphone to a smartphone itself says that it's a requirement. That itself says that there is a need to do that. The fact that you talk about digital literacy or financial literacy programs that we are now taking to as far as um, Mokokchung in Nagaland or whichever part in Mizoram you talk about or Sikkim or Arunachal or whatever it is. First of all, the fact that there is appetite for such a thing itself is change. The fact that then it needs to change itself is one positive parameter. But we are all stakeholders in that chain, in that value chain, right? It's we have to take it as a responsibility. I'm not saying all of us can solve the world hunger out here, but every little part has a significant impact. And I spoke about that in my remarks in the morning. It's not just about creating an impact, it's about creating the multiplier effect of that impact. And it's only and only when you create that multiplier effect of the impact that you're creating that you can say that there has been success. That's my approach to it. I believe strongly that technology can help us further amplify the multiplier effect that we all want to create. But again, my office meeting rooms is open. I prefer to do this on Saturdays when it is a non-working day. Happy to have this conversation further, learn from experts like you who are so invested in villages. But idea exchange is the best way to take the next step further, I believe.
Absolutely. I think we have to collaborate and co create.
Yes,
Yeah.
Imran. Thank you.
Hi, my question is for you, Suhela. So I'm Harshita and I'm the founder for Lex Level Services. And we provide holistic solutions for legal and compliance issues to entrepreneurs and startups, basically. So my question is, how important do you think are knowledge sharing sessions and trainings and skill development sessions for such women workforce who you plan to integrate in the main economy line? Because I feel there is a huge gap in terms of trainings and skills as well before we are able to incorporate them in the main economy.
No, thank you for that question, and very relevant. I mean, of course, skilling and capacity building is at the heart of, of the growth trajectory of any enterprise. But what I'm really sort of as UN, and I'm not sure about other organizations, we are also very cognizant of the fact that how we are measuring the impact of training. So I think I'm not shying away of the fact that we need to have a debate on whether training is important or not. I think what we need to look is that how that training is actually impacting into creating the result that we are intending to.
Hello, ma'am. I'm Tarun Adarsh, founder of Tech Acure Private Limited, and we are working in the health and wellness segment. So, when we are talking about the social changes, many times, like it involves behavioral changes at the ground level itself. And if we talk about the entrepreneurial aspect of that, means building a business about to bring the change as a final outcome. What we believe, it's sometimes not a need by the patient, by the persons who are at the end or the receiving customers in the end. So in that scenario, when we're trying to bring about the social change, for example, let's say preventive healthcare, whether it is the need of the person to change that behavior, and then if it is there, are they well equipped resourcefully or maybe financially to bring that change in their lifestyle? Are they incentivized in a way? Because majority, if we see in the ground level people who are more driven by incentives rather than thinking at the major beneficial long-term effects of that. So how do you think of bringing social changes in those aspects when the behavioral change itself is a challenge? Like I can just state an anecdote of that. Like women who are like having even the literacy, they are not much more concerned about their health. When especially the ladies who are getting anemic, they are just in pursuing the happiness and the wellness of the family. They sometimes ignore their health, and we have seen the anemic conditions in the Indian ladies, like because of the health issues, they take care of their families, but they cannot take care of their own health. So even though they are literate, I won't say that they are not literate, they are having good education as well. So such issues, how do you see in terms of like women empowerment when you are working on that?
Keep the conversations going, and you have to keep on talking about that, keep reiterating. I mean, I look at this beti bachao beti padhao campaign of government of India, which is really a behavior change campaign that is trying to address the norms, social norms that prevent women prevent young girls to be, number one, to be born, and number two, then if they're born, then access to equal opportunities. So I do think that making this part of our daily conversations, making them uh, uh, seen everywhere. You go out and you see on the bus, beti bachao beti padhao. So I think for for attitudes and for norms that are really driven by social behavior, we need to keep on talking about that. We keep to reiterating about them in as many ways as possible.
To your point, talking about behavioral change, I'm going to
Yes.
make the statement that men in the families have to take the ownership of that change. Behavior has to change um, of the men in the families, right? I don't think there is enough focus or enough outreach done to men to change their behavior. There's a lot of focus on women need to change their behavior, but in a society where there are probably just about 750 odd women to 1,000 men, we need to see where the behavior needs to change. Men need to change their behavior. They need to change their approach. They need to see, and it's not always changing my approach to what I'm going to do for my daughter. It's about changing your outlook towards what I'm going to do for my grandmother, what I'm going to do for my mother. Don't live with the fact that it's over. I couldn't do it for them. You can still do it for them. So changing that behavior uh, from an approach to You can change it for your grandmother, you can change it for your mother, you can change it for your sister and your daughter. It's possible. Change needs to be collaborative. And I believe that um, men are uh, a huge support factor that women need to make that change happen for all of us, to find that equitable place in society for all of us.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any more questions? Correct or correct? Maybe I'm a little off on the data. I was just making a reference point. Maybe the number is even lower if you know.
No, no. I think it's around. I mean, basically, it's around 950 to
Which
960.
is yeah, that's even good. Even then, there is a 50 gap, right?
Yeah, but you were talking about 250 gap.
There's still a gap. There's still a gap. I may be off on my numbers. There's still a gap, and I that gap needs to be addressed. Men are equal stakeholders in the change we want to see. We have to be a part of the change that we all want to see. So I'm sorry if I was wrong on the numbers. I take that back. I take your numbers. 950. Still a gap of 50 that needs to be addressed. Anyone? So yes, please. I think that should be the last question now. Even I'm hungry.
I think I had a last question for you.
Oh, you do. Can we take one from the gentleman and then
So adding on what a lot of people said that men being an equal participant, right? So I have been a fellow with Teach for India, taught in a classroom for 2 years, then work with person with disabilities and now working in career education. So what I have realized that many times boys are secluded from the education when it comes to for example, then when there's an iron capsule being distributed in the schools, boys are never taught that why this is being distributed. The girls are being put aside. Let's just all the girls please come on the wrong on the left side and I will distribute. Then so boys are not educated, right? So if you have to do that, I always say that whenever we talk about any campaign, let's think about how are we educating our boys, right? And that is not there. A lot of campaigns we see focusing on girls, but boys are left out on many things. So when we talk about inclusion, is a reverse exclusion sometimes happens. So I'm not sure how do we do that. Like we have a UN women agency, but we don't have a UN boys agency, right? So just thought of spicing up things a little over here. I'm always perplexed at how can we address that. That is all.
do you want to address
Yes,
that from the UN
if
perspective
if I
first?
could quickly respond to that question. So two things I would like to share here. One is from the feminist organizing perspective and how a feminist lens is used to really address some of these issues, right? We the feminist organizing principles talks about a value of a safe space created for women to be able to have these conversations, to bring them to that level that they are now able to engage in a wider communications or wider conversations around the issue. That is one thing. Having said that, it doesn't take away the fact that men should not be engaged. Men definitely should be engaged, but there have to be conscious strategies around because of the historical discrimination that women face. You cannot expect to have in our society and culture. Now things are changing, but it's still, we do not have that kind of culture still that where you are able to have plain conversations with a father and mother sitting in a dwelling court. So we have to go a long way on that, but things are happening. Why there is no UN men? Um, so I mean, again, as I go back to the statistics, if you would look at the statistics that we are talking about historically and at present, the report says that it would take some 100 years to complete the gender gap in education, in employment, in political participation. So, what we definitely need is a focused intervention around creating those opportunities for women to become at par and bring men as allies rather than and I think that is where this focus on women is coming from, to just address those historical gaps that we have been looking at.
Yeah, thank you, Sohila. I think, see, first of all, we all recognize why this focus on women came up, right? Because there are, and there will be these biases. Uh, we have to be careful not to exclude men. I really do, relate to what you're saying. There's no we should be careful to not exclude men while we are including women, and that we might just kind of slip it the other way around. Sohela, if I may say that. But I think a more uh, collaborative way of doing it is to include men in the conversation, uh, to have men participate in some of these initiatives, men take lead on some of these initiatives and be a part of that, and then make it. I mean, there is no less iron the boy needs than a girl needs or something like that. But there is that focus that is needed for nutrition for girls and things like that for various reasons. And I'm sure we all agree that there is a viable reason why such initiatives were started. That we should be careful as a society to not exclude men to exclude men and not have them be a part of the journey with
If
us.
I may just add to this, we have not seen a Secretary General, a woman Secretary General at UN. So that is where we are. But anyways, if I may ask you the last question and a very quick one is really, Pravina, how do you think that we could scale technology-driven solutions?
Well, I think technology is probably in today's time the only way to scale, right? The way I look at it is the power of technology to create that outreach. And, some of us have traveled, particularly in COVID times, to the far and furthermost parts of India. And we struggle to find answers to some of the problems the society faces just because they are not able to dial a doctor. Because in some cases, they could dial a doctor and get a solution. But that we saw the impact of that. So it makes me feel that probably technology is at least one of the top solutions to take things to scale. And somebody I think mentioned in the first panel, scale is not a challenge. Nidhi and Pratik were talking about scale in India is not the challenge, right? Technology driven solutions are probably a challenge that we need to work towards, because then scale is very easily possible. My colleague Parikshit works a lot with the startup ecosystem that we support here in India as part of the Go and Build program. And he constantly looks at the constant statement that we've seen in Build 1, 2, 3, 4 is how will you scale it? What are you doing to bring this to scale? And that's a constant question, which is a very good question if you ask me. And I think that's probably the only way to take it. With that, Sohela, thank you so much. It has been a pleasure having this, not just this conversation, but also the chat with you. This must continue, whether in a cafe or in a meeting room. But I'll be very interested to learn more from you. But thank you so much. Now it's time for lunch. We are delayed for lunch already. But thank you so much, and thank you for the patient listening.
Thank you both, Ms. Pravina and Ms. Suhela, for the insightful and important discussion. Maybe have a photograph, please. And may I request Ms. Pravina to hand over the compendium to Ms. Suhela.